Welcome in, everyone. This is another edition of the Full-Time Roundup podcast. It is your host, Daniel Brackett, joined alongside me, my co-host, Harrison Clark. Harrison, it was an absolute phenomenal weekend of soccer. It really was. Probably one of the best ones I've seen in a while in terms of just crazy results here and there and everywhere. But did you enjoy the weekend?
Sure did. I mean, you talk about a quality weekend. It wasn't just in the EPL, but in Spain, obviously, with the Clasico, pretty stunning there. And then a wild game in Serie A as well. I mean, I feel like Europe won the weekend just as a whole. And it was exciting to take it all in.
And you got some MLS playoffs going on.
Sure
I was
do.
not exactly pleased with Charlotte FC's performance yesterday, but we haven't seen a highly contested game yet other than the LAFC game last night, but I expect as all the chalk probably rolls against the lower seeds in once we get out of this next round, I think that's when the results really are going to be more interesting. But we'll have to see. Some good fixtures tonight, so definitely keep your eye on that if you're not wanting to watch football or the sports equinox and you want to watch a little MLS ball. But let's go ahead and start with the Premier League. Obviously, the biggest result of the weekend was Liverpool and Arsenal drawing. It was, I'd say it's a good result for both teams at this rate. It was a pretty fun game. 2-2. Can't complain about that when it comes to like a top three opponent. Sometimes these games can get pretty stale, cagey. But that first goal from Arsenal really opened up the game from there, and it was a highly contested match. If the whole narrative that we started previewing this was how Arsenal were banged up, and it could have been a blowout, and then they ended up missing two players instead of like five. Bukayo Saka obviously started and scored the goal. Timber played, as well as I can't remember who else was supposed to be injured, but everyone basically played. Arteta kind of was able to keep it internal, and looking back on it, I'd take a point any day of the week at the Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, Saka playing, I think, changed a lot.
Big time.
He is the driver of that offense alongside Odegaard, who obviously is still missing and a huge piece of what they do. But Saka opens up the scoring, and really, I think bad defending from Andy Robertson just got burned. He got cooked and then got cut back on, and it was lights out from there. But really, I would say a pretty evenly matched game. I mean, I think possession-wise, it was almost 50-50, pretty equal on shots both ways. And I guess Liverpool, from their vantage point, obviously are very happy to get a point on the road, twice tying up the game after Arsenal led, which shows the resilience of the group and, what Slot is building there. So, as a Liverpool, or I'm sure from your vantage point, you're not too upset with the draw. And really, I thought the game was pretty even.
Coincidentally, the two goal scorers for Liverpool are the two guys in contract negotiations. Couple of thoughts on the Liverpool side, then I'll kind of let you take the Arsenal side. I thought that it's time to have a conversation about Kostas Tsimikas versus Robertson. This is been several times now where Robertson has looked culpable at the back. And I'm not going to criticize him too much because I think he's been a very loyal servant of the club, and he's giving us so many good years at a cost of $6.5 million when we got him from Hull City. So not really going to criticize him or anything like that. But I think it's time to have that conversation. I think that Tsimikas has come off the bench multiple occasions and been the spark, provided some big assists, some big balls in. He created one of the goals. So, I'm thinking that Slot might be a little ruthless with this one, and you could see him starting forward. On the other outside back, I thought Trent had an absolute stinker of a game, just in his brilliant way to make it all up with that pass to Darwin Nunez, who then squares to Salah. I mean, probably one of the worst matches I've seen in Trent have in a very long time. But he just like didn't have it, his usual passing range, but then he goes and he creates a moment of magic and then he makes it all up. So, not going to give him too much stick today because of that pass to Darwin was just absolutely gorgeous. But, I was fairly happy within that respect. Virgil gets all the plaudits in terms of the goal and, how Virgil is in terms of being the best defender in the Premier League. But I think Ibu Konate has quietly kind of stepped up his game in the last year or two. I think he's very, very close to the level that Virgil's at. The only difference between him and Virgil is Ibu can have a mistake in him every once in a while, and Virg just simply does not make mistakes almost ever. I can't even remember the last time Virg had a gaffe. I think it was last year in the Champions League, but I think Konate, Martinelli should be so much more rapid than he is. And Ibu just absolutely catches up with him, buys him off the ball, and just handles it. And I see that a lot. He just is a superb footballer. That's why he's getting looks at captain for France. That's why he's starting over a Saliba for the France national team. And I just wanted to sing his praises here since not many sing his praises outside. Salah, what can you say about him? He of course scores has another big assist against the Big Six. And Darwin, I just think continues to be a brilliant player when given the opportunity. So I thought that was my insight to the game in terms of a Liverpool side, and I'd love to hear your Arsenal take, other than Saka being just absurdly good.
Yeah, there's still plenty of question marks regarding injury. Gabriel and Timber both come off injured.
Of course, they're supposed to be injured.
Timber was banged up going in. Then he gets subbed off. Gabriel, if that's a long-term scenario, I don't exactly know what his diagnosis is, but if that's a long-term problem, then they have a world of concern at the back because he and Saliba are so formidable as a center back duo. They're starting Partey. They started this game at Partey at right back.
He actually did well,
which is surprising. I really have never seen him in that role. So I guess big ups to him for being able to step into that position and play well. Marino and Rice make up the midfield. I thought actually they played pretty well. Marino scores the second Arsenal goal. I believe that's his first in an Arsenal shirt. So, they got contributions, I think, from guys playing either more minutes, who Marino really hasn't played a ton since he's gotten to Arsenal, but he gets his opportunity in this game. They get Partey to step in at left back or at right back. So, I think they got good contributions from guys they needed in this game, especially with no Odegaard still. But again, if these injuries are long-term, I just don't know how long this is going to hold up. I agree with you from your Liverpool takes, by the way. I think Konate has been sensational. He and Virgil are right up there with Gabriel and Saliba in my mind as best center back duos in the Prem.
Yeah. I just think that Arsenal just have more defensive approach. So naturally, we're going to concede more, but this year we've conceded less than anyone else. So
tells you what they think of Zinchenko for also there's an open outside back role and they're playing Partey there over him, even though it would be on his offside. I think he's pretty much done.
That's what I was going to bring up, is because you saw when Gabriel and Timber went off, I thought who he brought on as subs told the whole story. He brings on 2 academy kids.
And he probably would have brought on Calafiori if he was available as well. So.
Yeah. And Zinchenko's left to rot on the bench. So obviously that shows what they think of Zinchenko. They're going to need him to bring his best because they're going to have to rely on that at some point or another in the Champions League or in the Premier League. So lacking Arsenal, first 11, fantastic. They just lack that depth that Liverpool have in terms of all the positions. And so that is something of concern in terms of Arsenal going forward. But if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm probably pretty happy with that point, given that Odegaard missed.
I think both sides should be, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a fair draw. Fair draw. On the other side, City continue to like churn out wins, but very suspectly. They scored pretty early in this match.
5 minutes.
5 minutes with an Erling Haaland goal, of course. Who do you think? But I mean, you got to kill off these games. This game, we're talking the worst team in the Prem, not on the table, but just the worst team in the Prem, 100%. And I mean, I think Cameron Archer hits the bar right before halftime. They get another good shot after the fact. This is a team that City should be blowing out, kind of like Bayern went and blew out Bochum this weekend. I said those were very parallel games. So, City continue to struggle without the key players, and just simply the signings like Savio, Daku, Foden, Mateus Nunes, all of those guys just haven't made the impact that most people probably thought that they would, because City's definitely regarded as the best team in England with the most depth. But I'd start to argue that actually Liverpool probably has better depth than City do at this point, just based off those performances. But they grinded out. A win's a win, and they can kind of move on to the next weekend. Just hopefully, when they do play a really good opponent, maybe maybe they rue one and they drop some points there just because of how the performances have been as of late. I mean, at the end of the day, though, these guys are playing so many games. You're down for a stinker at least one a while. But I would say what stole the headlines not yesterday or Saturday, but today, Erik ten Hag finally relieved of his position. It's a sad day for the Premier League, a good day for United fans. I mean, they lose to West Ham. We won't get into the penalty decision that went against them, but at the end of the day, West Ham have not been good. And I mean, this is the most Ten Hag game ever. Dalot missing one of the worst open goals I've ever seen. It was actually more impressive that he missed. But you just got to put the ball in the back of the net. Suspect defending all around. Ten Hag, doesn't even use Manuel Ugarte in this game. 65 million guy who just got in 2 weeks ago. So Ten Hag's just man management. What he's done has just been, suspect, and it finally was the final nail in the coffin. And it's Ruud van Nistelrooy season. Can he give the Solskjaer impact? And will he do enough to keep the management train here until January, or is someone going to come and take over mid-season? I'm not really sure, but it depends on the results, I guess.
Yeah. Shout out Erik ten Hag for a phenomenal run. Really had some incredible moments. But I mean, his lasting moment will be beating Manchester City in the FA Cup final. I think that was his best moment as a Man United manager. But other than that, I mean, just a complete lack of identity in his whole time at United. You never got the feeling that teams were scared of him. You never got the feeling that once they got one result that they'd be able to back it up. And frankly, this was a long time coming. I always felt that
such a long time coming.
The FA Cup final saved his job, but he should have been fired, I think, a long time ago. And now I think United's in a really difficult situation. Do they hire Van Nistelrooy for the rest of the season? I did see they're in talks with Amarim from Lisbon. I think that would actually be a great. I mean, I like him. I like him. Chelsea, we're in on him.
You know how I feel about him.
Yeah, you like him.
A lot.
Yeah,
too much.
I think he would be a great signing as their manager. But again, it's a tough spot to put him in mid-season, praying that he can somehow get this United team over the line. But yeah, God, that Dalot miss was horrible. Holy cow, wide open net. Give me Fernando Torres flashbacks, actually, to when he missed the open net against United way back when. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say on United. They're just so poverty. But you got to remember, this is still maybe the biggest job in the world. So whoever takes it is going to have a ton of pressure to find immediate success for a team that really hasn't had any over the past couple of years.
Yeah. No, I think that there was also some really good Premier League games all around. I mean, talk about a witching hour in the Premier League. And I know some people, don't like, we have the betting show or whatever in terms of like the picks and stuff, but I do like to watch some games with friends, right? And we all decide to pick a game. We pick a leg, each of us, and we had a 3-way, parlay. And those legs were Aston Villa moneyline, Brentford moneyline, and the Brighton Wolves over. And for 90 minutes, we argued who was the idiot and who was the smart one, because all 3 of those games changed like 7,000 times. It was 0-0 in the Brighton Wolves game, ends up 2-2. Wolves come back from the dead, basically down 2-0 with a fantastic comeback. I mean, that last goal from Wolves, 3-4-on-1 fast break. You play the one pass that you can't play. Can't remember who the defender was. It makes a fantastic interception. It was giving me John Brooks flashbacks, USA versus Germany. It was giving you, what did you say? Wayne Rooney from
DC United.
Yeah. I mean, just hustle play. You make the interception, you immediately play it forward, and then Mateus Cunha caps off the big, draw there with a nice finish. That game was a lot of fun too. So like, it was glad that, the goals kind of flowed late in the game. Lewis or Ferguson gets off the bench and finally gets his goal. He's been pretty cold as of late. Not Lewis Ferguson, that's the racer, but Evan Ferguson. Thank you. And then, on the flip side, you got a Brentford 4-3 thriller. Brentford go down 2-0, tied up by halftime thanks to Johan Vissa, and then Brian Mbeumo, scores a third. The lap levels it up, and then Brian Mbeumo one more time, wins the match with a 4-3. Just absolutely nuts game. Ipswich had a red card too, and they still scored down a man. So Liam Delap is lighting up the Premier League. He will continue to be in a top flight next year, even if Ipswich go down, I think. But at least, shout out to Ipswich for showing some fight. And I thought Brentford were going to win 100%, and they made things tricky for them.
Yeah. Just a wild game. Brian Mbeumo continues to be him. I mean,
so good.
He bags the penalty, and people will say what they want about that, but the final ball he puts in, even if it doesn't go straight through, I think somebody else is getting ahead on it. It was just put in the perfect area. And let me just say, as a guy who had Brighton Wolves over Brentford moneyline ticket, and a Bournemouth winner draw ticket, I'm not too angry at the result of those 3 games.
The Bournemouth
one was also just wild. I mean,
Aston Villa goes up, and then Bournemouth, in the 90th minute?
The 95th minute, Evan Nielsen heads one home. Huge point for Bournemouth on the road. And
yeah,
I think that, I always thought the line was a little interesting, that basically it had Aston Villa as -110 at home. I do think that they've just played a ton of games recently, especially with the Champions League Cup games, Premier League, all coming in succession. It did feel like a letdown spot for them. So yeah, all 3 of those games,
talk about
nuts at the end, stoppage time, game winners and game tying goals. It was a lot of fun.
And the funny thing about it was, I was looking at the slate with my friends, and we were like, the slate's all right. Like, it's not a great Saturday. And it ended up being like one of the best Premier League slates we've had all year in terms of
when you least expect it, Dan.
Yeah, seriously. It was a fantastic surprise. And like, we pulled up like 3 or 4 screens because every single game was just bonkers. It was like, we got to see what's going on here. So that was a lot of fun. I really wish they stepped up the Premier League goal zone. Because if they made it anything like the Bundesliga goal zone, it would have just been flash, 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 like red zone.
The
So
Prem goal zone is brutal, dude.
it's
It's so bad. They can make it so much better.
It is. And then, you see, I was watching Bastikas Galatasaray today on my lunch, and that game was wide open. And even they have automated technology to go back to the Marino goal. Like, why did that have to take 10 minutes? Like, why can't we just scan it and go? It's either a goal or it's not. Like, what is this 10-minute BS that we have?
It's wild because everybody watches the Prem, and yet they could still step up their product so much more.
So much better. There's a lot of untapped. I mean, La Liga, watching the El Clasico, we'll get to that later, but they had all these camera angles, some replays, all these stats on corners. It's like, why can't ESPN is shit, in my opinion, in terms of broadcasting at times, but they've done a great job with La Liga and all that. And I think that Peacock and in the Premier League are really just doing the status quo, and they could really pick up the broadcasting on an unrelated note. I mean, I do think that wholeheartedly. Also, I wanted to mention, because you mentioned Brian Emblemo, and I'm a big fan. We've sung his praises several times. I was watching a video of how all the Manchester players, they go and they talk in the table, and they're talking about Liverpool and in the midfield, right? They're like, well, I just don't understand how Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and McAllister just are the most dominant, midfield right now in the Prem. And you throw in Curtis Jones and he hits the ground running. You throw in Harvey Elliott, he hits the ground running. And someone quote tweeted something and I retweeted it. And I couldn't agree more. It's like, well, Manchester United would have made none of those signings in terms of those players because they're not the big names, but they work. The data's there, the scouting's there. Man United it feels like they just look at names and they're like, yeah, that's gonna work. I know this player. This guy's a star in the making. He'll be good. I just don't know how long it's gonna take, but Manchester United have been trying to sign the guy for years in every single position, and so many of those guys have flopped. Instead, just trust the scouts, go get the good deal. You don't have to always do the flashy signing. And I feel like that encapsulates Liverpool's success versus, Man U. Man U would have never bought Sadio Mane or Mohamed Salah or Roberto Firmino,
Yeah.
So I feel like that is the biggest problem at United right now. I just don't think the recruitment is as good as other clubs. And you have a Brian Emblemo who I feel like would be a star at United, but he's not that sexy signing that United fans would call for. And I think that's the biggest problem about it.
Well, I think that in comparing Liverpool to United, look over the last couple of years, Liverpool have not spent a lot of money.
No.
And they've been able to build solid teams still. And United are buying Ugarte, who all of a sudden doesn't even play. And you're buying other guys where name value, it sounds good. And part of it is because of Ten Hag and his inability to create some sort of identity with these guys who just don't play well together. And I even though Chelsea probably overspent a lot of players, I think that you can see that the manager has a huge part in building an identity in the team. And you can already see that with the kind of midfield that Chelsea is starting to build with Caicedo and Lavia, and they're putting these guys together. And it's all because of the scouting. They wouldn't buy all these youngsters if they didn't feel that they would perfectly fit into what they have planned. So I think that Man U really, especially under Ten Hag, just haven't really had a plan. They just feel like they need to buy players to get them up the table with no real plan of where they will play, how they'll work together. So I think Liverpool is a pretty good example of how to do it right, and United's a great example of how not to do it.
Yeah, I think Spurs have done a great job in the recruitment with youth and non-sexy signings, but Van de Ven, Brennan Johnson, Solanke, none of those I feel like were sexy signings, but they've done well. Yeah, so just to reflect in terms of the Manchester United fan, I just think you could you don't have to get the star boy. I mean, Kobe Mainu and Rashford came in as academy kids. Garnacho is probably one of the best players you've had. Bruno Fernandes came from Udinese, So like not that sexy of a signing in terms of like his status beforehand. And look at what he's done. So
you got to establish a style of play before you can
go and
you can actually buy the players. And I just don't think Man U necessarily had a real style of play. They just kind of bought players.
No, completely understand. But I thought that was interesting. Chelsea, your club won a big game, and Matt texted me and had a question. I wanted to see your opinion on this. Can Maresca be a top 3 Chelsea manager in history?
Can he?
Will he? Can he? What do you think? We're talking better than Mourinho.
I think that
Tuchel, all of them.
Chelsea's plan, even though they've had a history of firing managers, this is what they do. They fire managers. Yep. A lot of it is under the Roman Abramovich era, and Todd Bowley also isn't afraid to extinguish it by he's already fired. He fired Tuchel, he fired Potter, he fired Pochettino.
Yep.
I think Maresca is the kind of guy that they want there long term, and there's like clear evidence of that he's already signed his 6-year deal. They love the way he plays. I think that he already has established himself as a very good manager in the Prem just by, again, I hate to go back to the identity talk, but like he has already established an identity with the players. He's weeded out the ones he doesn't want. He has his clear set number. The guys he likes, the guys are going to fit into his system. And frankly, if he's able to turn what people were all arguing was a team worth way too much money, way too young, no real path to success. If he's able to turn all of that jibber jabber into all of a sudden Chelsea or a front runner in the Prem again, I legitimately do think that he has the capabilities to be a top 3 manager. I mean, we think about all-time Chelsea managers immediately go to Mourinho, and then you can make the argument for Conte if you want to. You can make the argument for a bunch of other guys.
Tuchel.
I mean, Tuchel won a Champions League. He doesn't necessarily have I don't think he wasn't there super long, but he did bring a Champions League, so you have to take that into account. But I think Maresca is here for the long haul. And if he's able to, fully bring Chelsea back into the title discussion, then he definitely has the capability of being a top 3 manager.
Now we talk about Cole Palmer. That pass was something
made me feel really some kind of.
I don't even have any relation to Cole Palmer in terms of a team, and I mean I'm kind of fanboying him in terms of just his performance. He's not only the most talented player in the Premier League, but he's definitely the best player on England already, better than Harry Kane, without a doubt in my mind. I think he's also has the best first touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've ever seen in terms of, I mean, you could really pull some legends here. I mean, Ronaldinho's first touch, Messi, of course, Maradona, Zidane, like he's on that status in terms of first touch, and he's only 23 or 22 or whatever, how old he is. He's young. I mean, the fact that he has done it 2 weeks in a row where he's received a first touch under immense pressure, dinked it around them, and then ran around them and played like a ball like that. Like he makes it look so easy, and that is the hardest thing to do. And like even when he like receives a ball with 2 people on, he'll like figure it out. Like he'll somehow maneuver around everything. It's so impressive. He's such a fun watch. And this guy, I mean, we were talking about Wirtz being the most talented youngster, and he's starting to enter his way in the conversation in terms of being he's definitely better than Jude, I think, for sure. He's up there with Musiala, Wirtz, and him, just 3 just Galacticos who are just, I can't even fathom how good they are, including Lamal, of course.
He's incredible. And teams are starting to build, like teams are defending Chelsea now to stop Cole Palmer. Like that's the goal. But he still figures it out. That pass he made to Pedro Neto, like orgasmic.
Who's rapid too. I love Pedro Neto.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that he deserved a start over Sancho with how he played, especially in Greece this past week. He played very well there. He's played well, frankly, in the cup matches. I think he's played his way into a start, and he flew to that ball to then find Jackson. But Palmer, like, he just find it. I hate to do this, but like he's like Messi in the sense where he's able to find the pockets and then find the right kind of ball or just hit an absolute banger. And the fact that he is the guy that we only spent 45 million on and he's the one doing all this is just pretty incredible. I like Pep will never say that he should have let Cole Palmer go, but he I'm sure he rues losing him.
I think they thought Foden was better. And
yeah, I mean,
and Foden with the sample size, obviously. I mean, the guy not
on
counting
his day,
the last
on his day is disgusting.
Fantastic. I mean, similar technical ability, very similar. I think Palmer was flashier than Foden, but Palmer's also 6 foot, a little bit more physical, and I mean, hindsight, it's always bullshit to look back, but
I think
it's a tough one.
I think his finishing actually goes pretty under the radar too, Palmer. Yep. Like people will say he's all penalties, people will say he's all creation, but I tell you what, every time he's in front of goal, he doesn't miss.
You expect him to score.
Yeah, like he scored in the first half. He was a toe offside, and he put that one side netting. Even the one that ended up being the game winner for him, I really did like. You'd expect him to go far post there, and he fools fools Nick Pope and goes near post. I mean, he's incredible, and Chelsea have found their man for years to come. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, we got our Cole Palmer talk in there, which I was hoping
glazed the fuck out of him.
Glazed is
just.
It's bad. It's bad. I'm sorry.
But I glaze him every day, so it's not that crazy.
Now, we did talk about Palace being bottom. I predicted that the same top three that went up will go down. Now it's looking a little bit better than beforehand. Wolves have now leapfrogged Southampton. Crystal Palace now are starting, they huge win against Spurs.
Massive.
Can't be understated enough. Don't really know what happened to Spurs there. It was bad. They played bad. It was all bad.
First win of the season.
Now Leicester lost. So
can we give a little hype to Forest?
Yeah, well, that's what I was. That's what I was. I mean, not pointing at you, but I've been trying to tell people how good Nottingham Forest are. They are 7th in the Prem with 16 points. They're 3 points off, or 2 points off of 4th place with Aston Villa.
Is Chris Wood elite?
Chris Wood, double digits 3 years in a row. It might be time to have that conversation.
Fantasy ball.
Gotta have him. He's very good. He's good from the spot. He's a good target man. He's very good. You got Hudson-Odoi, you got Alenga. Morgan Gibbs-White's out right now, and they're still winning. And then they've, their biggest problem last year was the goalkeeping and the defensive line. They signed Milinkovic. They signed a kid from Portugal, and they've tightened it up. Ola Ana from Chelsea has been really good. They signed Moreno on loan from Aston Villa, who wasn't getting game time. He's been great. And they figured out the midfield, even with long-term injuries from Danilo, who was supposed to be their guy. Ward-Prowse is out right now. So Nuno's got it figured out. He's got it figured out. He's cooking. So they are a really, really, really hard team to beat. Yeah. And they'll go nick one late. And, they kind of blew Leicester out at home. So I expected that. That's why I bet it. But yeah, no, I mean, Leicester, I think, will revert back to the mean. They're still good. They're still decent. Jamie Vardy keeps kicking, which is incredible. But yeah, no, I think we're going to have a really fun bottom half of the table because I do think there's a lot of parity all around the Premier League, which is always, makes it enjoyable for the neutral, especially.
Well, it's just like with so many injuries to top teams too. Like
so many anytime
that a lower side faces a top team and they have potentially have guys out and their legs are dead from already this week, then you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Going to the Bundesliga, I've been kind of hesitant on Bayer Leverkusen, was glazing them so much at the start of the season. I'm starting to get scared. They drew all Werder Bremen. So now they're sitting still third, 5 points off Bayern though, and that's less than ideal. And then Dortmund lose, which they're so bad.
Fraudulent.
They're so bad. They're on fraud watch for sure. Leipzig, dude. Leipzig Thursday was my legacy game because I've talked so much crap about them, and they actually gave Liverpool a little bit of a scare, but we still won, thankfully. But they continue. They beat Freiburg, who's no slouch in the Bundesliga. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Marco Rose, I deserve
best coach ever.
No, but I deserve. You deserve an apology. I'm sorry. You did this without Simmons as well, which is even more impressive as he's going to miss a few weeks. But they're just one of those anomalies I'll never get. But I feel like the Bundesliga is kind of full of anomalies, if I'm being completely honest. And then, of course, Bayern, like I mentioned, shit pump Bochum. And they're looking Elise was that missing piece, and he's showing up big.
Five different goal scorers too.
5 different goal scorers as well. Yeah, that's scary. Always scared in the big games though, because Upamecano and Kim will always cost you. I promise you that. But El Clasico, one of the best ones that I've came to mind. We were right about this one. Real Madrid, fraudulent. And this game could have had probably double-digit goals. Real Madrid looked the better side in the first half. Just Mbappe forgot what offsides means. We talked about this in depth. The high line from Hansi could be a problem, but it actually did the opposite because Mbappe, 0 goals, 0 assists, 7 offsides. 2 more than Darwin Nunez's most when he was like the offsides king, or used to be at least. He looks like he's not having fun out there right now.
A little disheveled.
He looks not good. And Vinny had an off game as well. He missed a glorious chance or
that
two.
That miss in the first half was bad.
Yeah. And then Barcelona make him pay. Lewandowski balls out. Rafinha balls out. Lamine Yamal balls out. Like, I told you to get those tickets in before this game if you like Barca, and now they're the favorites. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go on to win it, but Frankie de Jong came back today for the first time. Gavi's back. Olmo's back. They're getting healthy, and they've been dominating. So only imagine. They beat Real Madrid like a drum with a La Masia squad, half of them.
Yeah.
That against Galacticos. That is Marcasado with an assist. Like, Paul Kubarsi literally looked like prime PK out there.
Crazy.
Hanging balls.
17 years old, and he's holding a line like he's fucking a vet. Unbelievable. He was baiting Mbappe the whole first half.
I'm going to make a statement here.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to make a statement.
Oh, hell.
Paul Kubarsi is at the level that Lamine Yamal is at for his position. With that potential. I mean, the guy hasn't put a foot wrong. At 17 years old, played for Spain and won the Euros. He's playing for one of the biggest clubs on earth in the biggest game, El Clasico. Real Madrid had won 4 straight. Just absolutely dominating.
He was in the Olympics. Still won gold, though.
Excuse me. But he did win gold. But, I mean, like, this guy is insane. Balde on the left is insane. And then you have, like, 3 or 4 La Masia guys to choose from in the middle with Gavi, Casado. Bernal tore his ACL, and he looked really good. Pablo Torre. I mean, the bench is incredibly deep for La Masia kids, and I'm really excited. I think Hansi's got this team purring, and he might be finally they found their manager to take them to that next step after years and years of malpractice and bad coaching. So wanted to really shout out Barcelona. Some really good goals. Lewandowski missed 2 absolute sitters too. This could have been way worse. And I think Darden Carlo is going to start feeling the heat soon if things don't change. And not even results wise, like just performance.
Madrid's defending in the second half. I mean, just horrible. Like, they're defending this whole year has been bad. Anytime they lose the ball, it's really difficult for them to get it back.
Yeah.
Just something you don't usually equate to Real Madrid. And Barcelona, just so much fun to watch. I think they can win La Liga and the Champions League. That's how good I think Barcelona is. And Yamal just creating so much. Unbelievable at his age to be doing what he's doing. He scores, lifts up the lip, shows his braces off. Just, I was like, oh my God.
He goes, he hits the Calma, says, I'm him, and then points to the back of his jersey at the Bernabeu. Copies CR7 Ronaldo at the Bernabeu.
Kid's got it all, dude.
Kid has got aura for sure.
Oh, Rafinha stays hot, scores again. I mean, this guy, he's captaining the team too.
Which is kind of wild, honestly. But, I mean, there was a golden chance for Lamine in the first half. First time back heel flick over the top from Lewandowski, just absolutely like fine wine, feeling himself. And the guy is running away with a golden boot at 36 years old. And it looks like Lewandowski at Barcelona at age 30 when he like had like 50 goals in the season. Like this guy is
plus 490 preseason.
Gotta love that.
Plus 490 Lewandowski golden boot. Not to say I have it, but yeah, I do. So
on the back here.
Yeah, I like where that's heading. But I love how just after the Dortmund game I said that Madrid, like this could be the moment that really gets them going. Even though I'm betting on Barcelona. And
was not.
Yeah. The wallet was happy, but the mindset was completely wrong. Good grief. I mean, they're in shambles.
I mean, you would think they went 43 unbeaten at the Bernabeu. Yeah. And they broke that.
It's their first time losing in
a year,
a long time.
Something. But it was if they won this game, it would have been, or tied, it would have been 44 in a row, breaking a Real Madrid record. So that's how crazy Real Madrid's dominance have been at the Bernabeu. And now you mix in that loss. Then Rodri wins Ballon d'Or today. Vinny and Real Madrid and co don't even show up to the ceremony, which is,
Jude's not showing up either.
Jude didn't show up on the field or to the ceremony.
Yikes.
And then you mix in an Mbappe who went to Real Madrid for the sole purpose of winning the Champions League and the Ballon d'Or. And you have like 2 or 3 guys competing for that trophy and they didn't win it. That could either be a really good thing as motivation, or that could fracture the locker room, in my opinion. And, thankfully they do have Don Carlo as a coach right now, because I think only so many managers can deal with that, kind of all the egos in the locker room. But this next hire that they have next season is going to be a really interesting one, because they're a little bit unbalanced on the playing field, but when it comes to the locker room, I think it's even more of a trouble when you added in Kylian. So,
they're reminding me a lot of PSG a couple years ago right now.
Yeah. Too top heavy with Messi, Neymar,
Messi and Mbappe. Is Mbappe the problem?
Well, if you look at the sample size, they were good last year, and now they're not as good. Now, they weren't playing that good of football last year, but they still won the Champions League. So, I think the Champions League in the next couple of weeks will dictate kind of how we feel about them, because they'll probably keep grinding out results in the Liga now with the playing catch up to Barca. But it's going to be a really interesting storyline to follow this entire season.
They could have used Rodrigo this weekend too.
Is he out?
Yeah,
that's a tough miss, because he comes in and can pop up in really big moments. So I completely agree. Now, in terms of Serie A, we had one of the games of the century, and you can tell how stupid we are. We said this was maybe a 1-goal game, and you know what, Harrison, there was 4 goals in the first 30 minutes of the game and ended up 4-4. So an absolute thriller between Inter Milan and Juventus. at the San Siro. Zielinski with 2 penalties, Mkhitaryan and Dumfries, and then Vlahovic, Weah, and Yildiz off the bench with 2 goals. McKennie with 2 assists, Weah with a goal. U.S. national team kind of ate in Calcio this week, which was nice. But very uncharacteristic game for both of these teams. Both of these teams are known for their defensive stability, and there was just no defense played at all. But at least I get to see Juventus put 4 past someone, because I didn't even think that was possible.
Yeah, no, they goal scoring wise have been pretty poor this year, but their defense has been extremely strong. So that would lead you to believe that the under would be a good play, and couldn't have been more wrong. 4-4, stunning result, really, between 2 teams that we thought would create a cagey game, and it decided to be wide open, full of chances.
Whoever says Calcio is boring, go watch that game, because that was not a boring game in any stretch of the imagination.
No, we got 2 real titans of Serie A clashing, and we got a good one. So I can't, from a viewer's perspective, you can't be too upset with that. Wallet-wise, not great, but I mean, hey, listen, I think Inter will probably be upset with this result, especially at home against a team who have struggled a little bit to score, and you give up 4 at home. And I know it's Juventus, but their results and their form recently has not been all that great.
They barely beat Young Boys. They won in the 90th minute.
Yeah, no, they've been struggling a little bit. So, and you thought that Inter was starting to turn a corner. A little bit of a setback here. Obviously, they do get a point, but I think they expected to get all 3.
I think that's a really good point for Juventus. A little disappointing, the display for Inter. I agree.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Napoli continued to grind out results. It wasn't pretty against Lecce, but they still got the win. They're leading by 4 points now to Inter. Juventus in third at 17. But Fiorentina in 4th place. They absolutely drubbed Roma. Don't sleep on La Viola. They absolutely kill Roma. Roma's coach is probably going to be gone, which will be the second coach to be fired this season. It hasn't happened yet, so I could be wrong, but I can only imagine how the Roma fans feel after that one. So that was obviously less than ideal. Mose Kean
leading the line.
Redemption arc here for the guy. It struggled for years after coming on the scene at Juventus, and has finally found his goal scoring form again. And we get to see Mario Balotelli with Genoa now announced. So that should be even more Calcio enjoyment. Unfortunately, Milan and Bologna, which would have been a really fun game just as a storyline, was postponed. So don't get to talk about that this week. But yeah, that was kind of, the biggest games, this window. I'm just checking everything else just to make sure I didn't miss any, but I think we covered it all. We'll probably have a quick midweek episode in terms of just talking about, previewing this weekend's action. We won't talk about any week stuff, during the week stuff, because there's just a little bit of Serie A and then some EFL and Polkai Cup stuff. So nothing crazy going on midweek, which is, going to be good, easy, much easier to focus on work. To keep an eye on that Feyenoord Ajax game on Wednesday. I think I'm buying Ajax stock as we speak. So we're going to see if they can prove it against a good team. But other than that, I think there's a lot of midweek Calcio that should be an interesting watch to have on the background, and then some fantastic games next weekend. So definitely be on the look for that on Thursday. Harrison, this weekend's action was absolutely bonkers. And I hope we have plenty to talk about next week as well.
For sure. Yep. Keep the footy coming.
Absolutely.